Welcome to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show, where you'll learn the ins and outs of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. Our 1-hour program airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. and repeats Sundays at noon, and offers new topics and discussion each and every week. Learn how to sell your home for more money and how to be savvy when buying a home. With over 35 years of experience each, let's now join your local experts, Wally and Cindy Kerr, along with your host, Dave McKay, for this week's live show.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of House Talk with Wally and Cindy Kerr. I'm your host, Dave McKay. Here we are once again on a beautiful Saturday.
Dave, you know, our listeners have figured out that we're music fans here, and it is we're dancing in September.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's September, isn't it? You know, and what's
flying by.
Crazy is it's almost like the elements figured out. We try not to talk about the weather here, but man, everything kind of just changed right here at the 1st of September, which means the OU Texas game, it'll be 100 degrees, right? Like it always is.
Yes. Here we are, and what do we have on tap for today?
Dave, we got a couple of interesting segments for our listeners today. One of them I've called, Hey, that's private information. Why do you need that? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about, if you're a home buyer, why you shouldn't delay getting your homeowner's insurance arranged. That ought to be something on the first of your list. You're probably thinking about your loan, maybe getting that appraisal ordered, the home inspections, but the homeowner's insurance policy is a big one. And we're going to have Skylar, Hake, as you know, join us today with a segment. We'll talk about insurance and how to hopefully keep homeowners' insurance more affordable.
Okay.
And Cindy, you wrote a segment for us this week for the show. What's that one going to be about today?
You know what? What if your neighbor turns their home that's right next door to your house into an Airbnb? And when I stayed in one in Fort Worth, I never thought about the neighbors in that neighborhood.
Yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We're going to talk about that today.
Good and bad.
We've got some other things in here today, but we've got a show that's going to be packed. It'll be tough for us to get it in an hour. We got to get moving today.
Well, we'll get right to it. Of course, if you can't stick around, make sure to join us tomorrow at noon. That's when the replay is. And then you could check the website, wallytalkshouses.com. You can subscribe and get those notifications to when you can listen back to the show as well. Again, like Wally said, a big show today. We're going to get to it right after this. Stick around.
Hey, it's John Tesh, and if you're selling this year, there's only one man in Tulsa who's willing to guarantee the sale of your home at a price agreeable to you, or he's going to buy it himself. And that's Wally Kerr at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 999-6000. He's the only man I'd call to sell my home because he has a proven system that just creates more demand for any home. And that's what you want. More buyers interested so that you put more money in your pocket. Call Wally today, 999-6000. That's 999-6000.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
I should have called Wally first.
That's the call I get when someone lists their home with another agent and it doesn't sell. She needed my written guarantee. If you really need to sell your home, why list with anyone else? Sell faster and for top dollar with my guarantee in writing to sell your home, or I'll buy it myself at a price we both agree to up front. No gimmicks. I'm Wally Kerr. Call me today at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000. Get your written guarantee today at 330-3000.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful. From knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2270. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
We're back, and Wally, you sent me something interesting that you saw on the internet.
Yeah, I emailed that to you and Cindy. So did you read it? So
a little bit, but tell our listeners what it was.
So
this is interesting.
Yeah, amazing. So a 102-year-old lady from Britain who went skydiving recently.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so she's the oldest skydiver in Britain that they can document, and she jumped out of an airplane at 7,000 feet. Wow. Now, you saw in the picture, she was strapped on to somebody else.
Yes.
And her face was just pulled taut, as she's facing the ground.
Yes.
And first of all, I think I would just pass out and probably die.
No, we're not height people. We don't even like to go to the state fair and go on the Ferris wheel, right, Wally?
That's right. Yes, they're calling her Daredevil. Her name is Minette Bailey, and she celebrated her 102nd birthday in August with a tandem skydive at Beckley's Airfield in Suffolk, England, and that was her first ever parachute jump at age 102.
Wow.
She said she was breathless. Here's what's cool. She raised money for charity. Get this. 2 years ago, for her 100th birthday, she marked that birthday with a visit with what's called the Silverstone Circuit racetrack, where she got behind the wheel of a Ferrari and she sped along at 130 miles an hour, and she actually still drives her own car.
That's
She's
amazing.
a daredevil.
Well, she's an inspiration, isn't she?
Yes.
I mean, here's what she said in the article. I'm trying to encourage all the 80 and 90-year-olds out there. That reminds me.
Those youngsters.
Remember the movie Grumpy Old Men where Burgess Meredith says, one day you wake up and you're not 82 anymore. And he's like 91. And we just always laugh at that. So here she is trying to encourage these youngsters, as she'd probably call them, these 80 and 90-year-olds, to get out and do these things that she's doing. And she said that she's lucky to be fit and well, so that she's got something to do. And she said her secret to living a long and fulfilling life is community and friends and being among people, and she wants to help do it up for the next generation.
I thought for sure you're going to say that her secret was she has a Brahms burger every day for lunch with a glass of wine.
Yeah,
I don't
like
that. Listen, whatever is on her list, I mean, she just
sign
said.
me up.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I worked with a lady in California, a real estate agent, and she was in probably her early 60s, and she decided she got a harebrained idea to go skydiving. And she did. And she came back to work and had broken both ankles.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I guess when she landed, it's not as easy as it seems.
Yeah, you look at even war movies and, Top Gun, whatever it is, and you see people coming down. And I've never been skydiving, Dave. It seems like that you would come down and have a great probability of breaking or hurting something. Have you ever done any skydiving, Dave?
I have not. My wife has told me several times to take a flying leap, but no,
love it.
I have brought up the subject, and I'm not a big height person either, but the thought of just kind of floating like a bird would be amazing. I think I would probably jump out of the plane, pass out, and probably wake up on the ground.
I'd need many thousand feet because, like you, I'm afraid I'd pass out. But hopefully I'd come to in time to yank the cord. So, Cindy, let's play our game with Dave today. You know what our game is, right? So that's how much to do this. How much to eat that raw octopus sandwich.
Yeah.
Wally, would you eat it for $100? No. Would you eat it for $1,000?
We always do this, and there's a price that you do just about anything, right? And then Wally says to me, well, now I know your price. So
okay, so Dave, would you go jump out of an airplane and go skydiving for $300?
No.
Dave, would you do it for $700?
No.
Dave, would you do it for $1,500?
I would start to think about it, but no.
Dave, how about $20,000?
Yes.
Okay, so we found your threshold here. No at 15, you'd have to think about it. 20,000. Dave, how about 7,000?
$7,000? I'm probably jumping out of that plane.
Dave, what about $13,000?
Oh, I see how this game
That sounds unlucky, doesn't it? I don't think I'd jump for $13,000.
I'll say probably my minimum is probably $5,000.
$5,000. How about $4,500, Dave?
$5,000.
Okay. All right, anyway, that's how we play the game. So anyway, hey, kudos to this lady named Minette for being 102 years old. Listen, man, I want to be like her in one way or the other. First of all, I want to be alive at age 102.
Absolutely.
Second of all, I don't want them to have to roll me out in a wheelchair on the tarmac. I want to be able to walk out there, right?
Yes.
Hey, if I'm still alive at 102, maybe I look and say, I don't care if I live one day longer, so I'm just going to go do it.
Okay, I want to play this game. Here we go. We're at a concert. Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr have gotten back together. How much to not go in and miss that concert?
Yeah, I don't have a price on that, Dave. Let's just move on to House Talk today. What do you think?
Okay, so this is interesting, and it's kind of a sensitive subject. And we talk about people like you get credit card fraud or bank fraud every once in a while where, your credit card calls you and say, did you have this charge or did you write this check or whatnot? So I went on and did a little research myself. And okay, this data is from 2021.
Okay.
So you're not going too far back, but just a few years. Now, almost 24 million people, okay, that's right, 24 million people. It's about 10% of U.S. residents 16 years of age or older have been victims of identity theft the prior 12 months. So that prior year, about 10% of people in the U.S. 16 or older have been a victim of identity theft.
It's amazing how pervasive it is. Wally and I were actually victims.
Oh.
We do some advertising on Facebook, and we have a business account and have our business credit card tied to that. And we found that somebody got into our password, and we were seeing charges, and we had to.
Yeah, there were big charges. A couple of them, like 2 or 3 charges for $1,000 each.
Oh, my.
And we had to cancel the credit card, change our password, so it can happen to anybody.
I don't know if those stats really surprise me. I think there's a day it would have, but in today's society, 24 million people,
yes,
in the 12 months previous to 2021, that doesn't really surprise me that much. I mean, I know that identity theft is a really big deal today. So, Dave, let's talk about why a title company or a closing company, I mean, let's relate this to real estate, right?
Sure, yes.
So, where you're going to go close a home sale, maybe you're a first-time buyer, maybe you're a second or third-time buyer. So they need some of your private information, and of course your mortgage company does too, right? So when you buy a home, you're buying an asset that typically appreciates over time. We all know that.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
And certainly in recent years it has, and still appreciating even today. We talked about that on last week's show. If you missed that, I think we had some pretty amazing information last week about how home values and Tuttle was the hottest spot in 2024 thus far this year. So go back and listen to that. But, Dave, some people have tax liens that are filed against their Social Security number, and they're often for federal or state taxes, but there can be other liens that are filed under a Social Security number.
You know what? The government is just not that forgiving when there is taxes owed.
No, they are not. They are not. So if you're one of those people with a common name like John Johnson, maybe it's Tan Nguyen, Michael Smith, or Jose Gonzalez, or Kevin Brown, or Cindy Davis, you're going to probably find a lien of some kind filed on that name, but it's probably not you. And it's the reason that a title company collects only the last 4 digits of your Social Security number, because they look up the name, they look up middle initial, maybe it's birthday, but they're just trying to make sure that that's not you.
Sure.
And creditors know they file a lien in public records against you, there's going to be a court search that's going to be done before you close on your home. And if your name comes up in a search, the title company or the lender is going to use your social, the last 4, to assure that it's not you that has that lien. And Dave, you might ask why? Because that lien can be attached to a home after you purchase and close on the home.
Even though it's not yours, it could somehow get attached?
It could, but that's the reason that the title company is going to get your social.
Yes.
And they're going to work with the lender to make sure through the title work that isn't you.
Basically, you're saying we want to start off with a clean slate and not have any
and
question
your lender
marks.
Doesn't want a lien on the property.
That's in the lender's best interest. Sure. So they're going to often require that lien to be paid off. So think about this, folks. If it's you, kids, grandkids, or a friend, if you've got a tax lien, they're going to find that in a courthouse search, and you're probably not going to be able to close on a home unless you go in and pay that off. Now let's flip the reverse. Let's say you're a home seller and you owe $12,000 worth of unpaid IRS or Oklahoma state income taxes.
Okay.
It's probably filed against your Social Security number in your name. That's going to be pulled up just before closing, and here comes the title company saying, hey, we understand we're supposed to close the sale for you, but we found record of a tax lien. It was for John Jacobs. Could we have the last 4 of your social, and we'll want to see if that's you. In some cases, it matches up, Dave, and probably John Jacobs knows he's got that tax lien, so now when he sells his home and pays off his mortgage, he's also going to have to pay off that tax lien.
Sure.
You can't just assume that the IRS is going to allow you to take that lien and you say, hey, tell you what, I'm going to go buy another home. How about if you take it off of this one and put it on my next home, and the IRS says,
Nope.
no.
It's going to catch up. And this happens. I mean, I'm thinking back on transactions in that our processor processes for us, and these come about, aren't
Well,
they?
and one of the big issues is you could go to the title company if you have one of those tax liens and say, why don't you just get the balance for me and I'll pay it off? And guess what? The IRS won't talk to anybody but the taxpayer. So you got to get on the horn with the IRS. And then if you're trying to negotiate that amount down, that's not going to be an overnight deal. We've seen cases where just getting a payoff from the IRS can take 45 to 60 days or longer.
And it can really delay a closing. When you think about it, it's a last-minute situation. Everybody's ready to move, and they're got their moving trucks, and that can really throw a monkey wrench in.
Sure.
You may not know this, but Social Security numbers actually provide a lot of information. Obviously, they're used to verify your identity, and they're also attached to one name and one birthday. So if you have a common name like Wally mentioned, John Smith, your Social Security, birthday, middle name, and other corresponding information such as driver's licenses and addresses where you've lived confirm that you are that John Smith in question. And sometimes when you apply for a credit card, isn't that interesting how much information is out there? It'll send you questions. Did you live at this street or that street? And you're like, how do they know this? Did you work at this place during this year? And all that is put together to try to figure out what John Smith you are.
Yeah, they use mailing houses and public records and credit bureaus to pull information on an individual. Dave, there's also a firm or a service called Accurate Backgrounds Social Security Trace and Address History. Well, that's a mouthful.
There should be an acronym for that.
Yeah. We need to make one today.
Yes.
And that goes back 7 years and identifies information including current addresses, all addresses where the applicant lived, name variations and summaries, date of birth, and things like that. And Social Security searches will also reveal your work history and your credit information, such as foreclosures and bankruptcies.
That's interesting. Now, I probably could have guessed some of that, but I wasn't aware that my number revealed quite that information. Like my credit report, sure, I knew that, along with my personal information, but I never thought about things like name variations would be in there and addresses where I lived.
Yeah, that's right. And here's something really interesting, Dave. And I didn't know this until I read it. Criminal records are not tied to Social Security numbers.
Thank goodness.
See, I didn't know. I'm not. I wasn't in that jail cell with you,
That's
Dave.
right.
So you never told me.
Well, that's where the name variation comes in. They booked me on Dancing Dave, but they're not going to get me on Dave McKay.
Dave, individuals' criminal charge may or may not include their Social Security number. So a clean criminal record check using a Social Security number alone is really not particularly meaningful.
So the title company is going to need the last four of your social to do a court check. Is that what you call it?
That's right. And remember that because your lender is loaning you the money, they are going to need your entire Social Security number and your driver's license information. They're offering to loan you money, so their trust in you has to be established.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember all of this if you were to decide, again, to sell a home, and maybe in a case you were going to be the banker, you were going to do an owner carry. Because there's people that look up and say, hey, I've got a property that I've owned for 30 years, and if I go sell it for $200,000 today, and it's not my primary residence, I'm going to probably pay capital gain. So instead of doing that and taking that hunk of money, I think what I'll do is just go offer financing and let somebody make me payments so that I'm getting pretty much an annuity every month. But remember, if you're going to pay the banker and carry the note yourself, I would recommend you close at a title company so that a court check is done on the buyer to make sure that if you go carry the note and you deed that property over to the buyer, that a tax lien doesn't get attached to it.
And it's important to note here that that particular seller who is, quote, being the banker does not have an existing mortgage on the property.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
own it free and clear.
That's right. It's the only way you could really do an owner carry is if the mortgage is paid off. Because you can't go deed your property to someone else. That's what's called due on sale or an acceleration clause, and the mortgage company says, whoa, Nellie, you can't go just sell this to someone else. You got to pay us off. You can't just go sell this thing. So you don't want to do an owner carry if you've got a mortgage on it, but if you don't have a mortgage, it's an option that would be available.
Great information, and two ways to look at it is probably, like you said, maybe 60 days before you're even going to sell your house. You want to check and see if there's a lien or anything that you have that you may have to owe taxes on, or if there's something that it says it's in your name and wasn't. You want to have plenty of time to clear that up. And also, like we say, there is some sensitive information that we get a little maybe skeptical, a little scared to share. But in this situation, I think we know we're sharing it, hopefully, with trustworthy services that are just doing their due diligence and also can provide that information back to us if something was filed in our name and isn't ours as well.
And Dave, we're going to hold that same confidentiality. If you would like to have a consultation, talk about maybe some liens, some tax liens that need to be paid, whatever you do, call us and we can have an absolute 100% confidential consultation. Or, I get calls like that pretty often over the telephone who say, hey, heard your radio show and enjoy it and really just wanted to talk to you about this special situation I'm in. So call anytime at 330-3000. We're happy to help.
Great information or wisdom from you guys. And it's time for our weekly wisdom. And I don't know how to, who we go with
Spin the wheel of wisdom over there, would you, Dave? Spin that.
Tick, 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 tick.
And it's Cindy.
Is it Cindy? Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are looking at me like I get to deter. You know who's talking. All right.
That's right.
Well, Cindy, great. What do you have for us this week?
Well, Dave, if you burn real wood, you've got to beware of creosote. And Wally and I have a really nice wood-burning fireplace in our living room, and we enjoy burning real wood. And we always get a couple ricks of wood. And that's just, to us, the sound and the smell is just kind of part of winter.
And we'll be there before we even know it. That time of the year is coming up.
Temperatures are dropping and homeowners are starting to think about their fireplaces. And I'm really glad we're doing this segment because I'm usually the one who calls these chimney sweeps. And it is amazing. If you wait till November, they are booked.
Oh, okay.
And the only one that's probably not booked is 3 times the price of what you paid the year before. But it is so important to have done because there's something called creosote. It's a dangerous byproduct that comes from burning wood, and it stays in your chimney until it's removed, and it can start a fire in your home. When you burn wood or fossil fuels, you want to make sure that they're burned completely. But the oils in the wood sometimes aren't burned completely, and they become volatile, and they travel up through the smoke, and as it cools, it absolutely deposits a tar-like substance on the inside of your chimney.
Wow.
And this is what a chimney sweep has to come and take care of.
That's the creosote, right?
That's right. And they bring all these brushes. I mean, I guess I had kind of a vision the first time I hired one, kind of like Mary Poppins, in the chimney sweep.
Yes.
But they bring these long poles with brushes, and we have a tall chimney, and they get up there and they just scrape the inside, and then they bring vacuums and get all that deposited creosote out. And the chimney sweep told me that if the inside of your damper is shiny, that's that creosote, and that is really combustible.
So the more wood you burn, the worse it's going to get, right? And you mentioned you guys have a wood-burning fireplace.
We do, and we do burn wood, and the creosote in your chimney is just waiting to be burned. So you do want to call a chimney sweep. But my recommendation is right after this show, I'm going to call because they get booked up so quickly.
Absolutely. Make the call and maybe ask a question, too. Will they sing while they clean out the chimney as well? You want a singing chimney sweep. You want to talk to Mary Poppins.
I know.
You want to have a happy-go-lucky.
You have this vision that that's what they're going to be like,
I think my song that comes to mind is All You Want to See Is Dust in the Wind.
Nice. I like that.
And you don't even see that because they bring these high-power vacuums, and as soon as they scrape it.
Oh, so you don't just blow this stuff out the top.
No.
You're not just blowing smoke.
You're not. No, and it doesn't just blow in your house. It actually extracts down into a vacuum, and they take it all out with them, and they bring in hoses through your front door.
Thank goodness she is in my life to help get some of this stuff taken care of.
You haven't witnessed the whole Mary Poppins experience. experience.
not.
Okay.
Hey, we need to stop, take a quick break, but just after, we'll be joined by Skylar Hake of Heritage Insurance Agency, and we're going to discuss how to control the cost of homeowners insurance. That's coming up next.
Would you like to know what your home would sell for today? Get a simple text message with your home's value by texting your address to 330-3000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. Wally has the buyers at Kerr Team Real Estate. Simply text your address to 330-3000.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful. From knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doak with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
Do your plans this year include selling your current home and buying another one? With fewer homes for sale and harder to find, you'll need a way to win the home you want by beating out other buyers who don't have to sell a home first. That's why you need me. I'm willing to buy your current home with a short closing date and an agreed price so that you can write a firm offer on the home you want. I'll buy your current home so that you can buy your dream home. No gimmicks. Call me today to learn more. Wally Kerr at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000. 330-3000.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy, along with Dave McKay.
Well, back to the show, and we are joined by our guest, Skylar Hake of Heritage Insurance Agency. Skylar, it's good to have you back on the show with us. And we want to discuss home affordability, rising home prices, higher property taxes, and most importantly, the rising cost of homeowners insurance, and see if we can help out our listeners today. I'd like to ask something that I saw in the news recently about the use of drones by insurance carriers. I think that's interesting. Is it true that more insurance companies are using drones to, I guess, survey storm damage, whether to renew homeowners insurance policies?
Yeah, Dave, it's true. Between drones or even just enhanced aerial imaging from satellite data are getting used much more often. It's obviously a lot cheaper than boots on the ground for them to have inspectors be out. The biggest thing we see with the aerial imaging or even the drones is either at the new policy inspections or even inspections of the properties prior to the renewals. You know, they're looking for just changes in risk. Is there trampolines? Are the trees growing over the roof? So we get probably multiple things a week from underwriting, kicking stuff back.
Now that's interesting. So they're actually looking to see if there's a trampoline in the backyard?
Yeah, they are. So, you know, trampolines is one of those somewhat innocuous things that actually is a big driver for liability claims. And so the insurance companies, most of them allow them, but they do want to see, you know, a safety netting that's properly installed and things around those things. So those get kicked back a lot, actually.
You know, that brings a really good question to my mind, and that is, what if somebody buys a home, they get it insured, and then they go in and put in an in-ground swimming pool with a diving board, but they don't call their insurance agent and say, hey, I put in a pool with a diving board? What would happen in a situation like that if there were a claim? I mean, is there anything in your insurance policy that would say, hey, if you put in a pool or you get a trampoline, that you have to call us and tell us that?
Yeah, I mean, there's typically, if you really get into the weeds where most people don't and read the actual conditions of the policy, there are conditions that, you know, there's certain notifications that are required. At most, we would typically see, again, they would probably get caught at the renewal, and they would either probably get non-renewed if it was something that the company wasn't interested in covering any longer. There is possibility for those changes to cause claims that could not be covered. So
I kind of see that, you know, Wally, as sports fans, these athletes have little clauses in their contracts, like I can't ride a motorcycle or I can't go skydiving until I get 102 years old, like our lady from Britain. So maybe it's something like that. If you don't report it, you can get knocked down for it. Let me make some statements that might be questions. And I find it really fascinating using modern technology to make things a little easier, especially for the insurance companies as well. One, where you're not risking having individuals actually go up on a roof where you can slide, fall off, and hurt yourself. Now you can use a drone to do that. And I imagine that a drone possibly could get different angles and different viewpoints of things where a person could not. So if you did have hail damage, but maybe a person can't really get to that spot to look at it and see if a tree is doing this to the roof or whatever, does a drone really enhance your viewpoint and checking out that information?
Yeah, so it really does, because obviously you're going to get a better perspective from a drone than you could from just a human being trying to get on the roof. It's quicker, it's faster, it's more economical, but also they can take those images and run those through the software and have AI analyze those things and get a lot more accurate.
And drones, the quality of the picture's gotten so good. Could you actually see hail hits using a drone? Would an insurance company actually be able to analyze and assess hail hits, or do they still want somebody, as you said a minute ago, boots on the roof? Will there ever become a point where you don't put a roofer up on a roof to settle a claim and they would only use a drone?
I don't think it's not this giant widespread thing where every claim and every adjuster is going to have a drone out. It's definitely a case-by-case basis. I was really talking to an adjuster the other day about scheduling, and he said, well, I have drone training next week. And so they are starting to do it. And these are mainstream carriers, just the everyday adjusters we have in Oklahoma are starting to do it. But again, it's not something that's quite just everywhere, but it's starting to be there for sure.
An insurance company couldn't just suddenly fly a drone over somebody's property just to do an assessment of trees on the roof or see if there's a trampoline in the backyard, could they?
Yeah, so it goes back to kind of the larger issue of just privacy and things. When drones really came about in any context, that was a big issue that the judiciary really didn't have any sort of thing there yet. That's become a bigger thing. There are, obviously privacy things we want to be aware of and concerned about, but for the most part, if it's out in the open, in public, and there's no expectation of privacy, and again, this isn't legal advice, but it's normally okay.
Okay, and like you said, usually you're out there on their call to come out and check out some stuff. So I could see it where the homeowner obviously knows what's going on. The question at hand that we do want to ask right now, too, is how could I save some money on my homeowner's insurance and do it safely without maybe putting myself at risk where I'm basically getting down to the bare bones where I'm going to be out a lot of money because I didn't insure this or that? How can I save some money? Do you have some programs for that, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, everyone's feeling constrained financially, probably more than they have been in years past, and the insurance isn't helping that problem. So it's a daily conversation we have in the office with our customers. And so, the biggest thing is just shop. Because if you've been at the same carrier for 5, 10 years, however long, you may just not be getting the best rate. Every insurance company has a different appetite for the risks they want to write and where they give the most favorable pricing. And you may just be a better fit for a different company. Second to that, if you're already in the best place, there's really nowhere else to go to make a huge change. It really comes down to it's a trade-off of coverage and deductibles. And, the more coverage we want, there's a higher price to pay. So we can either increase deductibles, take some coverages away, do things like that. The wind and hail deductible is just right off the top, the biggest mover of premium that you can do to change the price, to get the price down.
Okay.
Now, those used to be like $500, $1,000, $2,000, but most of that stuff now is shifted to a percentage of the value of the home. Is that right, Skylar?
Yeah, so in Oklahoma, you'll see we have a separate wind and hail deductible versus the all perils deductible. So your all perils is typically can be even $1,000, and that's basically for everything that's not wind and hail. But the wind and hail deductible, by and large, has been at a percentage, a 1% minimum. We've really seen in the last year probably a handful of the companies even go to a 2% minimum. So even if you want to start, the best deductible you can get is a 2%.
I want to back up here because I've got a pretty important question, and that is thinking about the lender. Let's say that a veteran moves here and they buy a $400,000 home. And let's say they put no down payment down. And we appreciate our veterans. They're allowed to do that because the U.S. government will guarantee that loan and allow them to do a zero down payment. Let's say the veteran doesn't keep a whole lot of money in the bank account and decides they want to do a 3% deductible on a $400,000 home. Skylar, is there ever a case where the lender says, we're not going to allow you to do a deductible that's as high as 3% because of how much money you are or aren't putting down?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happens. It's really dependent on the specific loan program that they have and those specific underwriting requirements, but there certainly are. And the idea is, the lender is trying to protect their investment, obviously. And if you have a deductible that's just unreasonable that the homeowner can't ever afford, that's effectively not insured at that point.
Sure.
So that's a big thing. And like I said, those are different. They can be all the way up to 5%. minimums. It's not something we run into a lot because they typically are higher than where the individual's even comfortable with, but that's certainly a thing to think about.
I saw something earlier this year, Skylar, that said something about for every dollar that was paid in for insurance across the United States over the last 12 months or whatever it was, that $1.19 per dollar paid in was paid out. And it's really strapping the insurance world because they're paying out more than they're taking in. Is there truth to that? Have you seen any numbers like that?
That's exactly what it is. And that's really what's driven the cost. In the industry, it's called a loss ratio, where it's a comparison of the premiums received and the claims payments paid out. And they've been at over 100%. And obviously that means the insurance company's losing money. And so there is a lot of negative sentiment, obviously, about just large corporations and insurance companies in general of, they're just out to get rich and while we're all out here. But they truly are operating at a loss. And that's why you're seeing these large increases, is they're really just trying to get back to profitability or even just break even point, right? And so that's really where a lot of the cost
It's really just not possible for insurance costs not to go up in our world today, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. No one's in the business to lose money. So it's just not a feasible thing in the long run. So that's really why the costs have risen so dramatically.
Now, Skylar, help our listeners. So do you just write residential? Do you only write for one company? Tell our listeners just in a nutshell quickly about Heritage Insurance Agency.
So we're an independent agency is what we're considered. And so we do represent a handful of different insurance companies, not just one. And so that really does help us tailor, going back to trying to find the right company for the right person and their specific circumstances. So it gives us a lot of flexibility there.
And you write auto also, is that right? Or do you just write homeowners insurance?
Yeah, pretty much every line. So home, auto, umbrella, motorcycle, even commercial. And going back to savings too, bundling your home and auto is something that is an easy thing to do, and you get good discounts on both your home and auto typically for having those with the same company.
I'll just say that they've done a great job for me and Cindy and been writing insurance for over 10 years. Done a great job on claims. Our investment properties are with Safeco. They've got some others, but Safeco has just done a great job for me and Cindy with coverage and with service, too.
Well, let's make sure that our listeners can reach out to you at Skylar Hake with Heritage Insurance Agency. You want to throw out a phone number, contact info?
The office number is 405-920-5196, and our website's yourhia.com.
Fantastic, Skylar Hake, Heritage Insurance Agency. Going to save you some money, possibly. Give them a call. Thank you so much for joining us and being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been great.
So great information on saving a little money, hopefully, on your homeowner's insurance. Now, let's talk about homeowners and maybe the homeowner that lives next to you, but they're not always home because they are renting out their home, as people are doing these days with Airbnb, VRBO, or Verbo, I guess we call it. So you're going to talk about what happens if the house next to you now becomes a rental property, which would be great if I live in Fort Lauderdale, it's spring break, and the whole sorority comes in for the week. But other than that,
there's a noise complaint. Time to party, great for the neighbors.
So, is this good or bad? This is interesting. I never thought about this.
Well, we're going to talk about it from both sides. We're going to talk about it from the side of the next door neighbor, but also from the side of the investor who buys that home to rent it out.
Okay.
So it's a business for them. Dave, have you ever stayed at an Airbnb?
Yes, absolutely.
And did you think about the neighbors when you were staying
Not
there?
one bit.
My girlfriends and I have stayed in 2 Airbnbs. One had a pool, and we grilled out. We had a great time, but we're not sorority girls, and we're not having parties.
No tequila, no fireball out there by the pool.
It wasn't crazy, so I'm sure we were good tenants, but it's probably not always the case, right, Wally?
Yeah, I agree. From the neighbor's perspective, you hear about neighbors complaining. The guests are loud, they're unruly, they're ruining the quality of life inside my quiet residential area. And they say corporate investors are swooping in and buying a lot of this real estate, Dave, because think about that a minute. What if you've got a payment on a home that's $2,000 a month, but you're renting this house out for $150 a night? That adds up to some serious cash flow.
Yes.
We have a lady in our office that lived about 1.5 miles from the OU campus, really about a mile. She put her home on the market. It was cool, kind of contemporary, in a residential neighborhood. She got a quick offer from an investor. They wanted to close and her to move out in less than 3 weeks. She just closed last week because they wanted the home in time for football season.
Oh, yes.
And so I don't have any idea how much they're getting, but, Dave, from the neighbor's perspective, they'll often complain about guests. Maybe it gets loud. Maybe it's people who haven't seen each other in 2 years and they rent a home for a family get-together or a family reunion or even a class reunion. And there are a lot of corporate investors too, Dave, that are swooping in and buying up real estate. That drives up prices and pushes out, people like first-time home buyers.
Reviews are really important to these investors when they make this a business, and they are one of the most powerful ways to impact a short-term rental business. Listings live and die by the reviews, and here's why. When a host gets a 5-star review, so say this investor buys this home and they're going to use it for an Airbnb for football. Airbnb's algorithms reward the listing by improving its visibility on the website.
So like when they get a 5-star review, that helps the visibility and they pop up higher?
And it goes to the top. But then if the reviews are bad, Airbnb or Vrbo can adjust those algorithms so that particular listing isn't even seen or may not be seen readily by the general public. And so neighbors can really impact an investor's business.
Oh, that's true. What happens if a neighbor goes in and logs in and gives it a 1 or a 2-star review? I would think that for Airbnb, the only way you could post a review was if you were an Airbnb customer and you're the only one that could go in and put up the review.
But what can happen is a neighbor can really influence the reviews by doing those things that you talked about. Unnecessary lights, trash, doing things that will make a customer of the Airbnb give a very low review. Okay. And that really hurts.
Well, I can see where that could create maybe some lawsuits on both sides. Now, who ends up winning in that situation?
Neighbors may cross a line when their actions fundamentally interfere with a host's ability to have a rental property. If you feel like you've suffered damages, monetary harm, you could sue for that as an Airbnb owner. But we all know that legal actions are costly and don't always come out in your favor.
I would think that there would be complaints to the city council.
Yeah, I think that's right, Dave. Neighbors have also started to organize against party houses, especially around the OU campus. And I think the city of Norman's got good control on that. The Common City Council meeting is now one of the most likely places you're going to get beat up. There's heated debate, especially on short-term rentals. And in some cases, neighborhoods create mailing lists and document disturbances and work with the media on anti-short-term rental coverage. And, plus some neighbors are running for office just to make sure that they've got impact on the neighborhood they live in or in that district.
But, there's also the thing called money, Wally. And for all the friction and hassle, police, court time, municipalities do have a reason to want to keep short-term rentals in their area, and that's money. According to Airbnb, travelers who use the platform generated, this is pretty surprising, $85 billion in economic impact across the U.S. in 2023. They found that for every $100 spent on an Airbnb stay, guests spent about $264 at local businesses like restaurants and shops.
Now, that's a big number. Yes. I didn't think about the economic impact.
It is very true. When I'm going back to those 2 Airbnbs my girlfriends and I stayed at, we ate out just about every meal. We drove through the Starbucks that was right by. We filled up gas.
Bought a lot of wine.
Yeah, no.
Boy, this is really interesting because when you think about it, the city has to answer to the neighbors who are complaining about the short-term rentals. But then you got the city looking and saying, look at all these tax dollars that are coming in.
Yes.
And by the way, Mr. Resident, neighborhood occupants, if we bring in these tax dollars, then we don't have to go in and tap into tax rises and maybe higher millage rates to go in and do these improvements because now we can fund.
We can improve.
We can improve our roads. We can fund libraries and schools. This is a really hot topic, isn't it?
It really is. Anyone hoping that the debate over short-term rentals will go away is going to find themselves out of luck. State, cities, and neighbors are going to continue to battle it out with no easy answers. And how municipalities are handling the disputes are as varied as the communities themselves.
Several years ago, Dave, we had an investor come to us suggesting that we partner buying short-term rentals with him, and he had all the profitability numbers, and they did look good. But, even at that time, Cindy pointed out that you never know how restrictive a government entity or city might become, which could really ruin the profitability. And this investor suggested to us leveraging the properties based on this elevated income. And we really felt like it was a bad idea. You know, if you pay cash or purchase with the idea that you can make the payment with an ordinary long-term tenant, then that's really the way to go.
That's the wise and prudent way. But in this case, they were saying buy, leverage. You're going to get, like you said, $150 a night. But what if the zoning changes and you no longer can rent to those people? Now you're in a situation.
Buy income.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And to know a place like Norman where it's a quick window to earn money for those, like it is a short-term rental. Well, I guess a lot of VRBOs and Airbnbs are, whether you go stay for a weekend or not, but the football season is a very short window. Now, places like Branson, we went to Branson over the summer, and they have a whole neighborhoods, and the whole neighborhood is all Airbnbs or VRBOs. Everyone is renting everything in there, and you can buy the home that you're staying in, but you would probably buy it to yourself, then turn around and rent it out. So it's whole neighborhoods, which was really
think about the Disney areas. Think about Anaheim and Orlando.
Yes.
So you know those Disney hotels. Now, look, Disney's great. Got lots of friends that love Disney. In fact, I've got one friend that owns a home inside a Disney community. But boy, you get inside a Disney hotel, the food's really expensive, the rooms are expensive, the valet or parking of a car is expensive. Imagine what short-term rentals and Airbnb look like in places where people take their families and take 5 or 6 days to go to Disneyland and Epcot and these parks, and they stay for 5, 6, 7 days at a time. I'll bet you that those areas for Airbnb and short-term rentals, I'll bet the communities are just loaded.
Well, Absolutely. And you know, Dave, I think your point was good, and I think there would be less friction if the entire community was Airbnbs. But I think where you're starting to see some of this friction that we've discussed is when you've got, like we saw in Fort Worth, it was a quiet neighborhood. And now that I think back on my experience, tree-lined streets, you could tell they were owner-occupied homes because we went on a little walk after dinner every night, and I'll bet there was some friction.
Well, good. I'm glad that you saw that was a good point that I made. So there won't be any friction between us. So there you go. There you go. Hey, we're going to be back to wrap up this show. You know, that's another topic that after doing this show for a year and a half,
we've never talked about that before.
We haven't talked about that before. There's always something, a little nugget of information every show. If you tune in, you're going to learn something brand new. And I learned something new again today. Stick around. We'll be back to close out the show right after this break.
Would you like to know what your home would sell for today? Get a simple text message with your home's value by texting your address to 330-3000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. Wally has the buyers at Kerr Team Real Estate. Simply text your address to 330-3000.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful, from knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Stoke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233, Equal Housing Lender.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
Do your plans this year include selling your current home and buying another one? With fewer homes for sale and harder to find, you'll need a way to win the home you want by beating out other buyers who don't have to sell a home first. That's why you need me. I'm willing to buy your current home with a short closing date and an agreed price so that you can write a firm offer on the home you want. I'll buy your current home so that you can buy your dream home. No gimmicks. Call me today to learn more. Wally Kerr at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty at 330-3000. 330-3000.
The Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show is presented every weekend at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and the show repeats Sundays at noon right here on KOKC. Let's get back to the discussions about how to buy right and sell for more with Wally and Cindy along with Dave McKay.
Okay, just a few minutes to wrap up the show. And Wally, we've been talking about this impending date, September 18th. The Fed is going to have a meeting, and we're going to talk about what rates could do from that. Or we're going to talk about maybe unemployment rates and everything like that. But I know it's a big date because the last couple of shows we've been talking about it. Tell us again the significance of it and what we could possibly expect.
Dave, there was some really interesting, pretty big data that came out yesterday morning early from the U.S. Department of Labor and showed that U.S. unemployment in August actually dropped a little bit from July. It went down on unemployment, which sounds good, from 4.3 to 4.2%. Not a big change, but the Fed's watching all these things. But here's what's interesting. There were far less jobs created during the month of August, far less than what was expected. So now we're talking about a weakening labor market, and that could be signs of a weakening economy. So everything that came out of this is what the Fed is watching for rates. So you just mentioned September 18th, right? Yes. We keep alluding to this because the Fed does meet on the 17th and 18th of September. It's coming up here in about 2 weeks.
Yes.
And they're expected to reduce its rate by 0.25%. But the real estate market already knows that, and lenders already know that, and they've already adjusted their rates, knowing that a 25 basis point decrease is expected. If they do a 50 basis point decrease, Dave, it's going to jet some energy into the real estate market.
Okay.
It would drop 30-year rates down into probably the high fives. Okay.
Nice.
A lot of people want to see the high fives right now. They're going to have to combine the data that came out yesterday morning in regard to unemployment and look at what the economy's doing. And I would say this is going to be one of those big decisions for them because it could go 25 basis points, which is 0.25%, or it could go 0.5 point. And I'll tell you that the way I see it right now is I've seen that manufacturing and factory orders and retail is maybe down just a little bit. It looks to me like the Fed maybe really needs to step in right now and do a 0.5 point decrease, but they're so worried about kicking inflation back up again. They're afraid that if they move too quickly and don't just take this in little bites, then inflation will come running back again. And they've been working for 2 years to kick inflation in the tail. So this is going to be a really interesting meeting. I'll tell you that the inventory of available homes in the Oklahoma City area is at a 5-year high right now, Dave.
Okay.
We're at a 5-year high on inventory, and it's all been caused by the lack of affordability and higher interest rates. I personally see the dilemma for the Fed and why they really just want to do a 0.25 point decrease, and I understand how that's safe to just test the waters and make sure they don't reduce too much and allow inflation to come back. But what I say inside the real estate market right now is the real estate market needs a 0.5 point decrease to get us back to a healthier spot.
So does that mean that we could have a lot more buyers jump in, even though it's kind of an off-season?
Oh, absolutely.
Or it could be both, I guess. Could we see now a lot more people listing their homes?
I think both of those could happen if we see a 0.5 point decrease. Here's what's interesting, Dave. Let's say they just do a 0.25 point on September 18th.
Okay.
The prediction is the next reduction would be in December. So what happens if suddenly in December rates go down to the high fives, and how many people will we see that say, I'll just wait till spring? But then maybe a lot of people will say, I'm going to jump on it before they go back up, and I don't want to take a chance. A little bit of a quandary going on. There's a lot that we will see on September 18th when the Fed makes that decision, and we'll keep our listeners informed here on the show like we always do.
Cindy, Wally wants to see the high fives.
Hey, high five. If you're
there we go.
listening to us, we just did the old high five.
And of course, we appreciate you listening to our show. Again, you can visit wallytalkshouses.com, and you can hit the follow button, and you'll be notified every Wednesday when the shows come up. So following the week of the show, that happens on a Wednesday. As Cindy and I always tell you, we love doing the show with you here, Dave. We are realtors, and we've got a great experienced team of realtors and administrative people. There's about 22 of us on our team. And Dave, we're metro-wide. We work everywhere from, out to Shawnee. We're out to El Reno. We're all the way up north of Guthrie. We've got 2 offices located here in the metro, one on the south side and one on the north side. Those are just places to light and meet with customers. but we frankly work the entire Oklahoma City metro area, always have, and we're expanding to Tulsa too. So wherever you are and wherever you're listening, if you can hear us, we would love to earn your call. Give us a call anytime at 330-3000.
You can also grab the show on all the major podcast platforms. And again, if you're listening to us on Saturday, that's when we do the show live. We're live in studio, and you jumped in towards the latter part of the show. Great information once again. You should never miss any show. If you missed a little bit of this, tune in tomorrow at noon on Sundays. That's the replay as well. So other than that, hey, you guys have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Dave. See you next Saturday.
This has been the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally and Cindy Kerr. Heard every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and replayed on Sundays at noon right here on 1520 a.m. and 95.3 FM KOKC. Selling or buying a home is a major decision in life, and you can place your trust in Wally and Cindy as local experts with over 35 years of real estate experience. Call or text them today at 330-3000 to request a personal visit or consultation. And be sure to visit WallyTalksHouses.com to access the library of shows and topics available for download.